So your appraisal value came in low and now you're trying to figure out what's going to happen next. So in this video, we're going to talk about what the next steps are if you are going to ask the lender to reconsider the value. So you might have received a notice from your lender giving you the option to submit a reconsideration of value. So I recently ran into this same situation with a house I sold in Milton on Cheyenne Drive. It was listed for $649,000. We were under contract for $620,000 for a VA loan for my buyers. And in the offer, we had negotiated for the sellers to give my buyers a credit at closing of $20,000 to basically cover all of their closing costs. Then we got the terrible news that the appraisal came in at, get ready, $490,000. So I do want to say that when I did the comps, after we looked at the home and I knew that my buyers were interested in writing an offer, I looked over the comps, I sent it to them, to the buyers, I discussed it with them, and I told them that I thought the property was priced way too high. This home had been on the market for, at the time we looked at it, it was about 160 days. So keep in mind that the average days on market for our area right now is right about 80. So this was actually double. I mean, at the end, by the time we wrote our offer, it ended up being at 173 days. So clearly, the problem was the price, because when you have a property that is not moving, it's either going to be location, which the location on this property was great. It's going to be the condition of the property. This house was totally renovated. And so I wanted to give you an idea so that you could see what the home looks like. So even though the home was built 1977, it had been pretty much remodeled. The seller, when they bought it, they took it all the way down to the studs and did a full remodel. The house looked beautiful. So as you can see, they did shiplap walls. They replaced all of the flooring. They did beautiful wood texturing accent on the ceiling. You see the exposed beams here, even though they're painted, they might be hard to see in the video. All new light fixtures, renovated kitchen. So top of the line appliances, quartz counters. Let me see, what else can I tell you? Now this kitchen had a beautiful butler's pantry / laundry room. So this is what you're looking at here. So I want to give you an idea of the property before I go into explaining what happened in our process. So you can see everything looks beautiful. That's the main bedroom. So let me show you. I want to show you the main bathroom. Main bathroom had also been completely renovated. The only thing I will say about the home, because it was built in 1977, the size of the bathroom felt a little bit tight. And the closets, it had one closet. So, one main closet, and then this closet that you're looking at here, that was probably like an old linen closet, and now they just had it, I don't know if they had it staged like this or if they ever used it as a linen closet. They did do a beautiful job with the shower area. This was absolutely gorgeous. In my opinion, it could have used some glass doors, but as you can see, new light fixtures. And then I want to show you, okay, this was the second bathroom. So as you can see, completely renovated, new tub, new cabinets, new counters. I mean, everything was absolutely brand new. The flooring was gorgeous. The house had a covered back porch. And I want to show you this because this, we're going to go over some of this in our, when we look at the comps. So right over here on this side, right over here is a carport. So this house does not have, as you can see, okay, this is the carport area. This house did not have an attached garage. It had a pool. Now I will say the liner was starting to sag in some of the areas, so that didn't look great. But it had this gorgeous, as you can see out here, this gorgeous entertaining area. So it's got this huge area here. And right over on this side, it had an outdoor kitchen. The sellers left the smoker, they left the outdoor TV, they left, I think it had a pizza oven as well. This is a closer look at it. I mean, it had a fireplace. And one of the nights that we went back for a second viewing, they had the fireplace lit. It was absolutely beautiful. Okay, so let me see, is that pretty much everything I wanted to show? Oh, one more thing I did want to show you. They did have this detached workshop. That was the other thing. Okay, so when we got our appraisal, the appraisal, and I'm going to put this on the screen for you to see. So let me pull that up. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living in the Panhandle, fun things to do, things to look out for, homes for sale, then be sure to hit that subscribe button below. Hey there, my name's Paula Snow and I've been living in the area for 20 years now. I was originally born and raised in Toronto, Canada, where it is super cold right now. And as a child, I dreamed of living somewhere warm. And here I am living in Florida and loving it. So whether you are looking to make a move in 1 month, 3 months, or in the near future, I would love to help you. All of my contact info is down below. Feel free to call, text, or email anytime, and I can help get you started on making a move to Florida. If you are already living in the area and you're thinking about selling your home and you want to know approximately how much your home is worth, feel free to reach out. I'd love to come over, have a look at your home, and give you an idea of what you could realistically expect to get on your home. So on the appraisal, the appraiser used 3 comps. So this is what a traditional appraisal looks like. So our property was on 3.27 acres and it was 2,274 square feet. Comp number 1 is on Tanya Drive, 1.5 miles away from our subject property. And so comp number 1 is highlighted in pink, as you can see on the screen. And so I wanted to explain where the adjustments happened. So our property was on 3.27 acres. The comparable was on 4 acres. So the appraiser adjusted $7,500 for the difference in the lot size. Now, if you scroll down a little more, you'll see where they write down here, where they adjusted $3,500 because ours had a 2-car carport and this comparable had a built-in garage. Now, if you look down here, we had a covered back porch and a covered patio, so a beautiful front porch. And so the appraiser felt that ours was nicer than the comparable, so they adjusted $1,500 there. Okay, then right down here, there's no adjustment on the fireplace because we had a fireplace and the comp also had a fireplace, so therefore it kind of washes out, no adjustment made there. Our property has a fence, the comparable does not, so we got an adjustment there, a credit of $1,000. Now down here on this line, the appraiser lumped these together. So she lumped in the pool, the workshop, and the pole barn is, what she's calling the pole barn is that outdoor covered area. And so on the comparable, they had 2 workshops, but no pool and no pole barn. Sorry, I'm all tongue twisted today. So basically we got a $17,000 credit for the difference there. So in total, we got $15,500 in credits or adjustments based on comparable 1 to our property. Okay, comparable 2 is the one in green. Now this one is on Forest Drive. It's a mile away from our subject property on Cheyenne, and this one ended up selling for $200 a square foot. I forgot to say that comp 1 on Tanya sold for $235 a square foot, and our contract price was higher than all of these at $272 a square foot. So on comp number 2 on Forest Drive, they were on 2 acres, so they had less acreage than we did. So on this one, the appraiser adjusted $17,500 for the difference in acreage. She also made an adjustment here for bedrooms because Cheyenne has 4 bedrooms and Forest Drive only has 3 bedrooms. So the 1 bedroom got an adjustment of $3,500. She also adjusted for square footage here. They were a little bit smaller than we were, so there's an adjustment there of $19,656. And then down here, they had a 2-car garage, and so she adjusted $3,500 for that. They had a covered porch and an open patio, so there was an adjustment of $1,500 there. They did not have a fireplace, so we got a credit of $2,500 because we do have a fireplace. And they did have a pool and a workshop, but they didn't have that pole barn area, so there was an adjustment made of $7,000 there. So total adjustments, $27,156. Let's look at our third comp. Our third comparable is on Blakemore Drive, almost 7 miles away. Their sales price per square foot ended up being $213. So their lot was quite a bit smaller. It was on 1.5 acres. So the appraiser adjusted $20,000 there for the difference in acreage. They had 4 bedrooms. We only had 2 full bathrooms. We did have the 4 bedrooms, so she adjusted $3,500 for that half bathroom. And then she made an adjustment of $25,000 for the extra, for the square footage, because they were a little bit smaller at 2,041 square feet and we were at 2,274 square feet. So this one had a 2-car garage, a built-in garage. So that was an adjustment of $3,500 because we only had a carport, not a built-in garage. On the outdoor area, they had a covered porch and an open patio. So she adjusted $1,500 there because we had that whole covered, she kind of called it a pole barn, but the entertainment area is what I'm talking about. So on this one, they had a pool and a workshop, but they didn't have that outdoor area. So she adjusted $7,000 there. So in total, adjustments, $32,000. So, okay, I wanted to explain all of that just to give you an idea, because this, if you're a seller and the buyer tells you that the appraisal value came in low, then it's normal that their agent is going to send your agent a copy of the appraisal. And so usually it's going to look something like this. You're going to be looking at 3 comparables and figuring out where the adjustments were made on those 3 comparables. If you scroll down a little bit more, right down here, you'll see where they gave the value of $490,000. So our contract price was up here at $620,000. Our appraised value came in at $490,000. Okay, so what happens next? Let's talk about this from both sides. If you're the buyer and your appraisal comes in low, step 1, you might want to have your agent reach out to the listing agent with an addendum, basically typing out new contract price, and you'll put in the appraised value. So that's typically how you'll start this process out to see how the seller responds. The seller on this did not want to come down from $620 to $490, and we knew they probably weren't going to. My buyers loved this house. They wanted this house. They were willing to do whatever it was going to take to get the house, meaning if we had to go through the ROV process. So we did not submit an addendum asking them to come down to $490 because I did have a conversation with the listing agent, and they were pretty upset that, naturally the seller was upset, the listing agent was upset. They felt like the appraiser wasn't experienced. I did call the appraiser. So the lender cannot call the appraiser, but your realtor can call the appraiser. So make sure, Hopefully you have an experienced realtor that is going to feel comfortable having this conversation about the comps with the appraiser, regardless of what side they're on, whether they're on the seller side or the buyer side. Either agent can call the appraiser. So when I called the appraiser, I wanted to talk to her about the comparables that she used. And so the other agent was basically saying that this appraiser was not experienced. And so I did go ahead and ask her that. She has 8 years experience. She's a full-time appraiser. She has a degree, a college degree. She is very experienced in my opinion. So naturally, that's the typical response when an appraisal comes in low. So next step is we told the lender, the buyer's lender, that we wanted to go ahead and do this ROV process. So I wanted to read some of this to you because this is important for you to know, regardless of what side you're on. So if you're on the seller side and your appraisal comes in low, then you might want to ask the buyers to consider doing an ROV, which is basically asking the lender to reconsider the value. So that's what it stands for, reconsideration of value. So let me read some of this to you. It says the value estimate on an NOV may be changed if the change is clearly warranted and fully supported by real estate market or other valid information, which would be considered adequate and reasonable by professional appraisal standards. So just to be clear, this doesn't mean calling the appraiser and insulting them, harassing them. I want to suggest against that because we're trying to work with the appraiser and the lender to basically adjust this value. So because my buyers were VA, well, actually, I shouldn't say the lender, it's the VA who was going to be reconsidering this value. So we want to work well with everybody so that hopefully they'll be supportive of making this happen. The next paragraph says any party of interest may request a change to an NOV. For documentation purposes, every such request must be in writing. Only one request will be completed. So that means they don't want the seller to submit something. They don't want the listing agent to submit something else. The buyers, their agent, they don't want 4 different requests. They want one request. So you need, if there's 2 realtors involved, you need both of those realtors to come together and decide on new comparable sales that are going to be used and submitted on one request. The change request must be submitted to the lender. Any request for a change in value that exceeds 10% increase will require a field review. Okay, so it says comparable sales, not listings or pendings. So that means they don't want you to submit homes that are on the market that haven't sold. I mean, that's kind of pointless, right? If it's on the market and it's not under contract, then that doesn't really support the value because anybody can ask way up here for their home, but it doesn't mean that they're going to get it. So that's why for the ROV process, they are asking for us only to submit 3 comparable sales that have sold. So these must be provided on a grid that are superior to those selected by the appraiser. For example, more recent, more proximate, more similar, etc. that closed prior to the VA appraisal report date. No more than 3 will be considered. A reconsideration of value is processed only one time. Since the information provided is considered to be by the requester and therefore VA, the information that is most reflective of the subject's market value at the time of the appraisal. MLS printouts for each comparable sale showing the sold information must also be provided to verify the information on the grid. A concise narrative explaining why the requester believes the comparables provided in the grid are superior to those selected by the appraiser is suggested to assist the reviewer when the data is examined. Items to include, and they listed 3 things for us: comparable sales provided on the grid with all pertinent data included. And I wanted to show you, this is the grid that they sent us. So basically, this is where they wanted the information filled out And then number 2, they wanted MLS cut sheets for each sale on the grid with sales data, including seller concession on the sheet. And number 3, they wanted a concise narrative explaining the reason the comparables provided are superior to those selected by the appraiser. Okay. So that's enough for that. Okay, so basically what happened next is I got together with the listing agent and we came up with new comps. So I suggested some comparables, she suggested some comparables, but ultimately we had to decide on 3. Now I wanted them to be involved because I didn't want to be the only one submitting these new comps to the lender and then have the appraisal come back low, because when you submit an ROV, there's no guarantee that they're going to make any changes to it. They might increase it or they might not. So what I didn't want to happen is that they made no change and then the seller felt upset like I chose the wrong comparable. So I wanted to make sure that the listing agent was a part of this process. We came up with these 3 comparables, and basically I made sure to choose homes that had a pool because I felt like that was going to make a difference, because without the pool, the comparables without the pool, I felt like we weren't getting enough value added to the adjustment to help support our price. And so we chose all homes that had pools, and we wrote a great explanation, just a brief paragraph on each, and we submitted that. And so once we submitted the ROV, and my buyer had to sign a letter, basically suggesting that we were wanting the value to be reconsidered to the contract price of $620,000. Now on a VA loan, it's 100% financing, so the buyers don't have to put any down payment. So the buyers were fine with whatever the value came in at, even though from the very beginning I had told them like, hey guys, this property is like way overpriced. I really think it needs to be somewhere between $500 and $550. And the reason I go ahead and tell buyers this when we're making an offer is because I don't want a buyer to go through the whole process of doing the inspections, paying for an appraisal, because that's a lot. The home inspection is like $500. The termite inspection is close to $200. The septic inspection is about $1,000. The appraisal is about $1,600. So if we end up canceling the offer, they're going to lose all of that money. So I never want my buyers to go into something blindly. I want them to know, and they were well aware, and they said, Paula, that's fine. Let's just move forward. We're fine with the price. They were coming from another state where homes are a little bit higher. And so they said, that's fine. If it appraises, great. If it doesn't, we'll deal with it. So anyways, we submitted this. We submitted it to the lender. The lender then submits it to the VA, and the VA had 1 week to review and come back to us. When they came back to us, they increased the price from the value from $490,000 to $538,500. So that was increasing the value substantially from the $490,000. Of course, it still wasn't at the $620 contract price, but remember, I had told my buyers that this would probably appraise somewhere between $500 and $550. So I was correct on my numbers with that. So at $538,500, that put us at $236 a square foot. So when we look back to those comps on the initial appraisal, those were at $235, $200, and $213. So we were right in line with that. And so at this point, basically that's the final step. Once you have the ROV value come back, that's it. Because you remember in the letter, it said they're only going to reconsider one time. So there's no going back and like, hey, you missed this, please reconsider because of this. No, they're going to do it one time and that's it. So at that point, we submitted an addendum signed by the buyers to the sellers, asking them to reduce the price to the new appraised value of $538,500. So you remember at the beginning, I had said that the sellers had agreed to pay give the buyers a credit of $20,000 for their closing costs. So the sellers wanted to renegotiate that. And so they said they didn't want to pay any of that at all. But we felt confident that at $538,000, it was still a little bit, on the higher end. And so my buyer said, well, we'll reduce the 20,000. I think we ended up reducing it to 7,000 or $7,500. And the other thing that the buyers agreed to give up was a 1-year home warranty that the sellers were going to pay for of $849. So negotiations can definitely happen in the process of an appraisal value coming in low. It's just a matter of who's willing to give up what. So the seller did come down in price quite a bit. We tried our best to get the value to come up when we submitted this ROV request. And so we got the value to come up to here. And so in the end, the seller did not quite get the price they wanted. And of course, the buyers would have been happy to have gotten the property for $490,000, but they also wanted to be fair to the seller, and they felt like going through the ROV process would be their due diligence of helping that value come up for the seller's sake. So I hope this has made sense to you. So if you are thinking of selling your home and you want to know what the approximate market value of your home is, feel free to reach out. I'll put all of my contact information down below, and I'd love to set up a private appointment with you. Come over, have a look at your home, and I can usually give you a pretty close range of what you can expect to sell for. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions about selling your home, about the appraisal process, about what we just went through with this ROV, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. All of my contact info is down below. Thank you so much for watching.